What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Ghost in the Night, a hauntings and paranormal podcast. Today we have a very special guest. I had a conversation with Kristi Tallone. She's a psychic medium, paranormal investigator, and blogger from New Jersey. You can find her blog at hauntedhistoryjaunts.com. Be sure to check that out. I'll have a list to all her contacts via Twitter and links to her blog in the show notes or description page of this podcast, but you're definitely going to want to check out my conversation with her. It was fascinating. She talks about her experiences at the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. So definitely listen to the conversation. It's well worth the listen. Don't forget, you can follow this podcast on Twitter. The Twitter handle is at @night_ghost. Follow us on Facebook at Ghost in the Night. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We post videos for all the podcasts. Plus, we do some extra videos when I go out and do an investigation. Any kind of paranormal evidence we come across, I try to share with you. So, be sure to stick around and listen to this conversation. It is well worth it. Let's go ahead and get started. Ghost in the Night with Phil Sams. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining this podcast. Today we have a special guest. We are speaking with Kristi Tallone from New Jersey. She is a psychic medium and a blogger who has an excellent blog that you should really go check out, and I really want her to talk about that. How are you doing tonight, Kristi?
I'm doing great, thank you.
So, tell us how you got started in the blogging.
So it's really interesting because, like you said, I'm a psychic medium and also a paranormal investigator. And I volunteer with a group, and I actually do investigations with them, not from the psychic side, but from the scientific side. And a lot of that, being an investigator is confidential. We can't talk about it.
Right.
So my husband, who wasn't at the time part of the team that I'm on, but is now, he really kind of wanted to join me on some of these things that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started searching out, just local places. We have kids, we can't travel, all over the place. So he'd find local places, some that were less well known, some that are very well known. And he'd put me in the car and say, let's go for a ride. And we'd show up here. At first, I think he was testing me to see
Right.
how authentic I was with things. When we'd show up somewhere that I didn't know anything about, and I'd see or feel something that was there. And we started having a lot of fun with it, and I thought it would be a unique look at things to share it with people from my perspective, and that's why I started writing about it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read. If you haven't checked her out, be sure to head over there and check her out. We'll be sure to... What is the name of the website so they can check it out?
Sure, it's hauntedhistoryjaunts.com.
And they can also find you on Twitter, right? And reach out to you that way? What's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, it's at @hjaunts.
Okay. So be sure to go check her out and read this blog because it's interesting. I read several of the blogs. I want to focus in on one because it's kind of personal and close to my heart because I've never been there, but I have some history with that area, and that's the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. Being from West Virginia, I love to talk about the haunted history of West Virginia. So, and you actually spent some time at this location, not once, but twice, correct?
I did, absolutely. On our first go-around, we actually had taken a trip, long trip out to Kentucky. We jumped in the car with my teenage daughter, and we visited a couple places there, one being the Bell Witch Cave.
Mm-hmm.
And on our way back, as almost a last, an afterthought, we were kind of like, hey, aren't we going through West Virginia? And I have no geographical sense at all, so
Right.
that's not far, right? Let's just stop.
Right, yeah.
It was always on my bucket list. Obviously, I've seen the paranormal shows about it, and I have a fascination with places like this anyway, big places, and I don't know if I'm a glutton for punishment, and that's why, but it just holds so much history, and There's so many emotions tied up in these buildings, as well as spirits. I have a bit of a fascination with them. So as an afterthought, we detoured probably about 2 hours out of our way with a teenager in the car with us. So it was fun.
Oh, yeah. That's always pleasant.
Yeah. So, I really wanted to go, is my point. And we showed up here at Trans Allegheny in Weston. First of all, the town of Weston is just great. There's so many little towns in West Virginia are,
right.
So much history there, and they're kind of standalone. There's just so much going on. But this town in particular, was really wrapped around, I think, this hospital, this asylum.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Weston State Hospital before it was bought and renamed Trans Allegheny. And since it closed up, the town has been suffering a bit.
Right, yeah.
It. So that really hit me when I was going through the town. You kind of see, abandonment's probably too strong of a word, but you do see kind of the neglect going through the town as you drive through now.
Right.
And it really kind of brings it home to you. And then when you pull up, we pulled up into to the hospital, and it's a huge, huge piece of land.
Mm-hmm.
There, it's like 600 acres, and it has a long, long driveway down to this massively huge building.
Right.
Brick building in the back. And as soon as we got, I'd say halfway through the town of Weston, I started getting really, really emotional and really anxious and kind of really sick. I started basically connecting with the building already.
Right.
And I got a little nervous at the time because I'm like, uh-oh.
Right.
If it's this strong, I'm a little worried about what's going to happen when we get there. And it was a sunny day, a beautiful sunny day, so it wasn't at night, beautiful sunny day. And we pulled up there, and as soon as we entered kind of the long driveway,
mm-hmm.
I really did. I mean, I got very emotional and a little overwhelmed. And then I got a little nervous because I'm like, I can't tell my husband and daughter.
Yeah.
We just detoured 2 hours out of their way that this probably isn't such a good idea.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so, we pulled up, and, Mike, it's a gift, but it's also a curse at times. But it's unique, and it's different with every site that I go to. But this place, the energy was just so strong and so powerful that I could see spirits, I could feel them, I could hear them. It was very overwhelming. So, we got into the parking lot, we parked, and of course, my husband and my daughter are all excited. They want to go out, they want to take pictures, they want to take a tour. And I literally couldn't even get out of the car at first, and it's so hard to put into words kind of what I was seeing. But it's a huge brick building, huge, bigger than I was expecting it to be, truthfully. Lots of windows in the front, and all as I could see everywhere I looked were just, the silhouette of people standing in these windows. And then, there were some that were a little closer to me, and I could actually see features of a female. Mostly females I was seeing, believe it or not, but there were some males. Some of them kind of touching the window. There was pounding on, some of them kind of pounding on the windows. And there was just such sadness and such torment and such fear that it took me back, because I hadn't felt anything so strong and clear like that before.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really overwhelming, and I got physically ill from it also. And so we did get out of the car after a little bit, and we started taking them. We have a couple of pictures, but not a lot there. I couldn't stay very long, believe it or not.
Now, did your daughter and husband still kind of take the tour, or just take a modified? They did not. They did not take the tour. They never walked in the building either. So you just
they never walked in the building either.
You just took pictures and on the outside and got in the car and diverted back to New Jersey 2 hours out of your way.
Yep, we absolutely did. They took one look at me and they realized there was no way. I mean, I did try. I mean, I walked up and I walked on. I literally got to the first step.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. I was like, I cannot go into this building right now. So yeah, we did. We came home.
No. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we came home and never entered the building at that point in time. It was very disappointing.
I can imagine. Now, your husband is obviously aware and works with you on your ability and understands like that particular situation, when it probably wasn't a good idea. He understands it now. Does your daughter? How old is your daughter at this time exactly? Was she?
Yeah, she was 16 at this time, grade 8.
Right.
I'll be honest, I've always had this ability, but I haven't always put it out there in the forefront for people to see or know, including my own family. I mean, they always know I was a little off. It's kind of easy to tell, but, the past few years, we've really been delving into it more and accepting it. And so my daughter, who, at first was like, what? She didn't want any parts of even knowing or hearing or talking about it.
Right.
Really just has seen so much with me now that, they're very accepting of it.
Yeah, so it wasn't, she understood that, okay, mom can't go in here, or if mom goes in here, it's going to be hard on her. So it wasn't like a big deal for her.
It was a little bit of a big deal.
Well, I meant as in not getting to go to the place. She's understanding of the situation.
Yeah, she did. She was a little mad at me for a little while on the way home, but it just made for a little bit more of a silent trip, so it was good.
That's the beautiful thing about teenagers. You want peace and quiet, which you don't get a lot of. You just piss them off a little bit, and you get
piss them off a little bit. You get to go.
You get quiet, and you can watch a TV show or just sit and read a book or do whatever you want. Those are the precious times. Okay, so you left, and without going in, took some pictures. When did you decide, I have to go back to this location and see exactly what's going on?
Yeah, I had always, as soon as we left, it left such a mark on me, and I really wanted to go back. It took us probably 6 or 7 months to get back. It's like a 6-7 hour trip. And we did leave the kid at home this time. But so we did go back, and probably about 6 or 7 months later, I think it was. And this time I was able to go in. We didn't opt for a paranormal investigation per se, or a night tour.
Right.
I really they're hard to do because there's always a lot of people, and so to actually do an investigation,
right,
something like that, most of your evidence is contaminated anyway.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the tours, the history tours like this from my perspective anyway. They keep the group somewhat smaller, and I like to hang back. Because anything I see, feel, or get from a psychic or mediumship perspective, I like it to be authentic. I don't want to hear, the guide or the tour guide talk about all the experiences everybody has, and then, I happen to see the same thing and it fits.
Right.
Much rather go in authentic and just see what I get. So that's why I really like this tour, because it was only probably about 10 people. And we were able to hang back. And it was only the one building. And from what I understand, they now have the other building open.
Okay.
Which is, I think, more where they kept some of the criminally insane people. But I think we'll put that on hold.
Yeah. That brings a question into my mind. Being you have this ability, and I want to say it's a special ability because you can communicate, you can see the spirits, you can communicate with them. You have an interaction with them that most people don't have. And it brings me to these tours, to where, like you just said, that tour guide is telling you stuff and you can justify it, or you are getting your information from another source, and it kind of correlates and it goes hand in hand. And yeah, okay, this did happen. This is what he's talking about. I'm getting it from Jane's spirit over here. Has it ever been reversed to where you've been on an investigation or been on a tour like this, and the tour guide's saying something, and you're getting information from a spirit that is completely contradicting them, and you're like, this guy's obviously full of crap, or he has no idea? Has that happened?
It happens a lot, actually. And if I have a very persistent spirit with me at the time, sometimes I have to speak up.
Oh, I love it. They love to see you come in.
And it can make me a real, they're not a very popular person in the room at the time, but
yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a long but very short tour after that, I guess, if you upset the tour guide. Okay, I'm sorry, I kind of got sidetracked. It just popped in my head that. No,
great question.
that you always think about it in terms of, okay, you can you get a better understanding of what he's saying. But what if he's saying or she's saying is completely inaccurate? And I'm kind of silly. I get fascinated by stupid little stuff sometimes. So as you were going through, and I read an article, now they have remodeled a lot of it in the nurses and doctors' quarters. They've pretty much looks pristine the way it was back then now.
Yes, it does actually. It took me by surprise when we walked in there because I thought it was an interesting place to start, the remodeling personally. Right. And it does. It is pristine, and it's full of antiques and things. And when we entered this spot, I'll see. It's difficult at times because I'll see, kind of what's going on in front of me right now. Mm-hmm. I'll have spirits around trying to interact, and then I'll see residual scenes. So it's almost like two TV shows overlapping on you at times. It can get disorienting. And that's what happened here because I think probably because it was restored or tried to be to the time period with the furniture and things, but it wasn't quite right, it wasn't really the furniture that was there in the same spot. So it got really disorienting when I walked in there. I wanted to kind of pick up the table and move it to the right spot or, move the chair out of there. So it was interesting.
Right. Now, we just talked about, residual and intelligence. I've had a few psychic mediums on the show before, and I've never thought to ask this question, but it just popped in my head. Once again, this is how my brain works. Residual and like an intelligent spirit or intelligent haunting. How exactly is there a difference is there a difference in how you see them, or can you tell, okay, this is a residual, I can't even speak tonight, wow. So see, that's that lack of sleep from that investigation. Is that a residual of haunting, and then over here is an intelligent? Do you see a difference, or is it just the way they interact with you?
No, I can instantly tell the difference. The energy is 100% different. I mean, for me, truthfully, when I'm interacting with an intelligent spirit, it is as clear a lot of times as you standing next to me talking to me. And not necessarily that I see them that way, but if somebody was to walk in a room and stand up near you, you could feel them. Even if you had your eyes closed, you would know somebody entered the room. A lot of times it's like that. And a lot of times I do see them as clearly as if you were standing there. Residual is more like a movie playback. And they feel very, very different, and they look very different. It's actually really easy for me to tell something that's residual versus an intelligent spirit interacting with me. And there's also an intelligent spirit showing me something. Okay. Which is also a very different energy or vibrational level to it. And I can really tell the difference quite easily.
Because I would imagine, like at this particular asylum, there's probably both there, I would assume. And do you kind of like that first time you were there when you guys didn't go in, you just took some pictures and stayed kind of right up to the front step, and you're seeing all these people in the windows and things around you. Now, do you see, what I'm trying to get at is, okay, are you seeing both at the same time? You can actually look like at the people, somebody banging on the window, and then see somebody just walk across the window or walk across the yard or whatever. And you can actually say, okay, boom, residual, that's intelligent. It's that simple, or I don't want to say simple, but that easy for you to kind of filter out the difference at the same time when you're looking at, hundreds of ghosts at the same time, basically, or whatever the number is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's hard at times because it's overwhelming, really. But absolutely, I can tell the difference right away, whether it's a spirit that's standing there that's intelligent, versus a replay. And it breaks my heart to say it, but there is a lot of both.
Right.
At the Trans Allegheny, a lot of actual intelligent spirits that are still in that building. In the nurses and doctors ward, for instance, that we were just talking about, there was a lot of residual scenes, but there also was a spirit of a nurse that was in one of the little rooms. I assume it was probably her bedroom when she was alive. And she was dressed in kind of that white, weird uniform with the hat that they would wear back in the day. Right. And what really struck me about her was she had these really severe eyebrows. And she was frowning, and you can see she did a lot of that in life. But a great example of that is because then I began to see residual scenes involving her. I guess when she had worked there, and a good way to say it is she was not a very nice nurse to a lot of her patients.
Right.
So I was seeing both at the same time. Her in front of me, kind of telling me, get out of my room, didn't want me in there. And then I was also seeing residual scenes of her during her life. Right. And they feel very different. Right. So it's a great question, though.
Those are the questions that I have because a lot of people don't think of it. Of course, a lot of people don't really lend a lot of credibility to people such as yourself, just from the mere fact it's so far out there. It's not far out there, but it's something that I can't prove or disprove. I don't know because I'm not you. I don't see what you see, so it's hard for me to, or not me, but it's hard for a person that doesn't have an open mind, I guess would be the best way to explain it, to say, okay, you're telling me you're seeing what? And you look and you don't see it. It's hard for people to comprehend and wrap their head around. And so that's why you get kind of those funny looks, or people say,
no, absolutely.
Okay, little cuckoo. But, there's no way to prove or disprove. Of course.
No, there's not. And, it's funny that you say that because I mention that in my blog all the time. I know how crazy it is.
Right.
I really, I honestly do. And that's why I like investigating, because I like getting evidence to back up things that I may say, or feel or hear. And then we get an EVP at the same time, right. Or you get other interactions on other equipment at the same time. I think that's great to get that validation for all the reasons. I mean, I love the scientific side of it as well as kind of the psychic medium side of it.
Well, that's what I always look for in paranormal evidence anyway, is, multiple indications of different devices. And when you have a psychic medium with you, or just a regular plain old empath that, can sense things or feel things real easily or more in tune with their surroundings, I guess would be a good way of saying it. And when you get that person feeling that, and then you're getting, an EVP, and it kind of correlates and it validates, they validate each other. And then when you throw a third piece of evidence in at the same time, whether it be a temperature fluctuation, an EMF, field spike or whatever, that's where you kind of zero in and narrow down the paranormal from the things that can be hard to explain. There's a lot of stuff that we can't explain, but it doesn't necessarily make it paranormal. It means we don't really understand it, or the person who is interpreting the evidence doesn't understand how it works or whatever. But when you have 3 or 4 different things joining together and forming the same conclusion, it's hard to discount that kind of evidence, I guess, or activity.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's always the pattern when we put it all together. Even anything that I get from a mediumship side when we're investigating, to me, you have to take it all with a grain of salt. I mean, let's be honest. I'm seeing a small part of everything that happens. I always say it's like a little crack in a door, right? I get to see a little bit more through it maybe than everybody else.
Right.
But you need the history, you need the scientific evidence, you need all of that, and you need the repetition of the patterns to happen to kind of pull it all together and really make a case for it. It's funny how my brain works because I see both sides of it. I do financial analytical work for a living.
Right. So it's kind of a contradiction, really, when you're analytical.
It is. Yeah. So it's interesting for me because I see both sides of it, and I want to understand both sides of it. And sometimes the things that I see, I think are a little nuts myself, and I'm like, well, should I say that?
Right, exactly. You always have that in your back of your mind is, okay, am I taking it a little too far, or is this going to make me seem a little bit too, out there?
Yeah.
You mentioned a dark presence at that location. Can you kind of explain, and what exactly did you see or feel?
Yeah, absolutely. We were coming up these creepy staircases, which I say are very creepy at this place. And, I began to feel this energy. I got warning bells. I don't even know how to explain it, but, I have, whether you want to call them spirit guides or angels or whatever you may believe in on the other side,
right.
personally, I call them they just help me out.
Right.
And they try to help protect me and keep me from going in places that might harm me, especially because I am a little, more sensitive than some people. It leaves me a little more vulnerable to certain things on the other side or spiritual realm. And so instantly I kind of got that feeling of, oh, wait a minute, don't go in here, and I was just like, I got really overwhelmed and I started to panic a little bit and I froze. And literally the only thing I did was reach out and grab my husband, was like, just stop for a minute. I didn't know what was up ahead. All I knew is that I was like, oh my God, it scared me. And we walked into this one section of the room. It's kind of like a big open room, and then there was a hallway and a door off to the other, like on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked over that way and I saw this big, tall, dark kind of presence and energy over there. And at first I just kind of felt like a dark shadow, and I felt this just really negative, oppressive energy, and I didn't know what it was. I was also still kind of feeling the panic from the warning that I was getting.
Mm-hmm.
And being as we were with like 10 other people, kind of turn around and running, wasn't really much of an option, especially because my husband probably would have been like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
It's our second time here. So I'm like, okay, just take a deep breath. What in the hell is this? And I got a clearer look at it, and and I know how this sounds. It sounds a little crazy, but it is what I've seen. It was a really tall, dark figure. Like it's really long arms. It was kind of like hunched over. By tall, it like reached almost to the ceiling, and it had these weird kind of things coming out of its head. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, you would think horns, but it's not horns, and it certainly isn't kind of the traditional of a demon with horns on it. I wouldn't use the word demon. I don't use that word easily.
Right.
I can tell you that it was a very oppressive, heavy presence, and it, appeared dark in nature to me. But then I began to realize that, wait a minute, it was kind of stuck in this little area of the asylum that I thought was really interesting. And I still, honestly, I don't know how or why that was. But it couldn't go all over the asylum. It could only stay in certain areas.
Oh.
But it definitely, seems to thrive and feed on so much of that negative energy that was in this building, and so much of the pain and suffering of so many of these patients. But we had to walk past this thing to get out, to get out through the other door out of the exit. And I was really intimidated. And at this point in my life, I don't get intimidated by much of the things that I see anymore, truthfully.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
But once I realized that it had its limitations, I realized that we could be protected from it, and I could safely pass by it, which is what we did very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly, got past it and went and continued on. We headed actually into the children's wing after that, which is always sad too.
Yeah, that is, I've always been, I don't want to say I'm jealous of you, but, I personally believe everybody has some kind of ability, psychically, I guess. It's just, some people are more open to it, or their mind, our minds are built the same, but they don't, like anything else, they don't all work the same. And some people are just more in tune with their brain and their surroundings, and they can interpret the signals better than most. But when I say I'm jealous is, being a paranormal investigator, there's times I wish I had 100% complete the same ability that you have. And there's other times I'm thankful, okay, because there's days I just like to turn it off and go about my day and not have to worry about, dealing with it, I guess, or being stalked, for lack of a better word, by a spirit trying to communicate. But it is so valuable to have somebody with any kind of ability, extra ability, or ability they're in tune with in an investigation, because it makes everything so much easier. And I wish I don't want to say I wish, but it would be nice to kind of, validate your own evidence, your own experiences with the fact that you can actually interact with these entities or spirits or whatever they are that you're dealing with at that time. So now, when did you actually kind of first know? I imagine you were pretty young when you first realized you were different, but when did you first have that awakening moment when you knew I see dead people?
It's funny because I really did block it out or tried to for a lot of years. Didn't really want to accept it. Looking back, like you said, I know as a kid, we always had experiences in our home because I would attract things like you had said, they would come purposely to try to interact.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've always been interested in the paranormal. I've always watched the TV shows,
Right.
Had my favorites. I actually met a medium who gave me such a profound reading and came from such an authentic place when he did so. It kind of changed my perspective on things a bit because, I've always been a little uncomfortable with the whole the mediumship side of things. Probably because I didn't understand it and I was seeing things I didn't understand. But once he did that and it changed something in me, it was from a loved one that I had lost. It made me think that, wait a minute, you know what, maybe there is something valuable here. Maybe I shouldn't spend so much time and energy fighting it. And so, it kind of changed something in me at that point. This was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I decided that I'd use it in some way. And while I can do readings and that kind of thing, it's not really where I put my energies or my gift with this. I do it in the investigation side.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a group, PCINJ.org in New Jersey, and we do purposely help clients who are having issues in their homes and that kind of thing, as well as do this type of investigation. And I do tend to draw spiritual attention, so we get a lot of great evidence, which I think is really cool.
You're kind of like a personal, a lot of investigators use, an EM pump or something to pump up the EMF in the atmosphere for those energies to draw on, but you're kind of a walking magnet for spirits, so it would definitely be beneficial for any investigating group.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually really cool, especially because I will carry a audio recorder with me, and somebody else will have one too. I'll get the EVP on my recorder,
mm-hmm.
and we'll have that validation because it won't be on the one sitting next to it.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think is always really neat. And then we just started getting into it more and more. And this traveling around, my husband gets to get involved in it by finding these great little spots. And I really like going to a lot of the places that maybe aren't as well known or haven't been investigated as much.
Right.
Kind of aren't saturated with that energy.
Right.
There's so much of it. Everybody probably has restaurants or, stores or churches or buildings or even homes in their town right around, that are historic in nature and have some great stories to tell, whether it's residual or even, spirits that are hanging around for whatever reason they want to talk.
Right.
And, kind of through it all, if I get to interact with a spirit and it helps them in some way, that's all the better. That's even better. That's what it's all about, is using it to kind of benefit everything and everybody.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And that's a great way to do it, really, just to use your abilities to help people. Because that's what it's a struggle for anybody that's had to deal with, activity in their home or in their life in general. It can be a struggle. It can be, because it's just not a scary factor. It's a factor that you have nobody to turn to, because you turn to somebody that is a skeptic or doesn't have the same belief. They, look down to you. They can ridicule you, and that just makes people go inward. And when you have a team or groups that are actively trying to help them understand what's going on and relieve some of that stress, that's a great thing.
We've seen so many profound, changes in people just by listening to them, and giving a little validation and believing them with the evidence we collect, or even things that I may say to them that they, didn't say to us in the first place. for up front, and it validates for them what's happening with them. It makes a huge difference. So yeah, that's my real goal with all this, is to help them, help the spirits, and then maybe have a little fun and visit some great places.
Right. And so basically your blog is just kind of you and your husband kind of going to different locations, not anything with the team, or does the team sometimes go with you to some of these locations?
The team sometimes goes. If we go to a place that, we call them fun investigations, we'll run a place out, like Lizzie Borden, place in Fall River, Massachusetts. We rent that place out for the night, and so it'll be a formal investigation. Well, somewhat formal. We're having fun too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right. So yeah, it'll be the team, but then a lot of my blog will be just places my husband and I are visiting, or even, we may go and investigate on our own too. So it's a little of all of that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, you have to have fun when you're investigating, because it's actually think of it as like the TV shows. You're there for a lot longer than an hour, and it can be.
Yes, you are.
And if you're not getting any kind of personal experience, knocks, bangs, disembodied voices, it can be boring. And sometimes you have to kind of pass the time and amuse yourself a little bit. And
you absolutely do.
Because that's what I've been doing a lot here lately. It seems like if I'm not getting I've been into these, not into them, but I've been trying to figure out these phone apps. I don't believe them at all, but but it's funny. You can use them, and it's kind of weird how you don't. I was going to do a podcast on it eventually, completely bashing them and throwing them under the bus. So I've been kind of, the past 3 investigations, kind of using them just to kind of, get a baseline. I don't want to bash them without, using them. You have to test them out and see if they're complete BS or not. And
sure.
So the first investigator I used them with, it was at Thornhaven Manor in Indiana. And I pretty much it got to a point I didn't you've heard of Thornhaven Manor, haven't you? It goes to,
I have.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in America. And I did not really feel anything. I didn't, it didn't even have a heavy feeling. And we had like 10 people there, maybe 8 people there. And, it's not it looks bigger than what it really is. So there's a lot of noise contamination. So I started saying, you know what? I'm not going to get any good EVPs. Let me start this app thing and start my research on it. And, basically it turned into me mocking the phone. And I don't want to put that. I've thought about putting that on, in a podcast or even a video, but I'm like, okay, people are going to think I'm an asshole just for the mere fact I'm basically jerking around with the phone, and I'm not taking it serious. But sometimes you kind of have to have fun when you come across buildings or places like that, because every building is different, and every building is not the same on the same night. You might go to a place 3 times and get something one night and not get it ever again. So people don't really understand that you have to kind of amuse yourself for 6 hours in a location.
Some of the best evidence we have gotten is when we are fooling around a little bit, and breaking the tension and having a little bit of fun. We get more of interaction when we're doing that and have our guard down and are actively trying to engage a spirit than we do when you're working for it.
Right. Yeah. Because people don't realize not all of them, but most of these were spirits or people in life. And I'm sure their sense of humor doesn't go away in the afterlife. I mean, yes, some might be pissed off that they died, but if they were, a funny person in life, they might appreciate a little bit of humor in the afterlife. So, it's to each their own, I guess.
100%. Yep.
All right. We're
boring room in the same halls, right?
Right. But, I just don't want to be that person. I'm kind of self-conscious to the fact that, I take it very seriously, but, I don't want people to think that I'm just mocking it, I guess would be a better word, that I'm mocking the profession or mocking the spirits or showing them disrespect by kind of pulling their chain a little bit. When I'm not really pulling their chain, I don't see you. How can I pull your chain if I don't see you and you're not interacting with me? So, that's kind of my thought. I still haven't ruled out putting up some of those videos just as like, blooper, like a blooper type thing, or talking about it a little bit more. more, but we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows? Thank you so much. We're running short on time. I really appreciate you coming on. Now, do you guys have anything on the books coming up that you're going to plan on writing?
Yeah, I actually have quite a few where we've been in the last couple months. There's one in my home, well, right outside my hometown called White Hill Mansion in Fieldsboro. I think one of the shows, Paranormal Lockdown, was there, believe it or not.
Okay.
But it's a great old mansion from the 1700s. It's kind of a museum now, run by a nonprofit, and they just do a lot of fundraisers. And I've been there a few times and had some really amazing experiences there. So I'd like to write about that and, maybe bring some people in to check this great old place out, because it is amazing.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on once again. And go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at on social media and the blog website again.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. The blog is at hauntedhistoryjaunts.com, and you can find me on Twitter at hjaunts.
Everybody go check her out. And if you missed that, I will be sure to put that in the show notes. Or if you watch it on the podcast via YouTube, they'll be in the description. So be sure to check her out. Be sure to follow her blog. And thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for talking with me tonight.
You have a great night. That was my conversation with Kristi. Like I said, it was fascinating. I really enjoyed talking to her. I really hope to have her on again sometime with some more of her adventures with her and her husband and the paranormal team that she works with. Maybe she can come on and talk about some more of her activity that she comes across. So don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and also be sure to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen to this podcast. So till next week, take care.